Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast. My name is Kyle Golding. I'm your host. I'm joined today by Brent Smith from Firefly Energy Services. They are gas and liquid storage solution experts. We're going to talk about some innovation that they're bringing to that space. So first, introduce yourself, give us a little bit of background on Firefly, and then talk about some of the new things that you guys are doing that's very interesting in that space.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm Brent Smith. I'm Chief Communications Officer with Firefly Energy Services. Our team, myself and my two partners, are energy professionals. Our primary experience prior to our current endeavor is primarily in the midstream space and also in utilities, which lends itself well to what we're doing now. Basically, what we've developed is GasLoop, which is our trademarked and patented natural gas and liquids storage solution. It's an underground pipe array. So it's basically like a pipeline construction project. What's novel about that is that it's co-locational to an industrial facility. That's the patent language that we use. That could be any number of things, but that gives us some flexibility in terms of opportunity and different applications for the system.
Okay.
So it's not just natural gas or on the liquid side, primarily looking at ammonia right now, but we're kind of evaluating that a little bit. The original concept was for natural gas storage at a power generation facility for providing supply and demand balance, peak shaving, some financial strategies, some reliability and resiliency solutions associated with that. Fast forward to February of last year, winter storm. Now we're having emergency conversations, base load, vulnerability of the grid, and our conversation started changing a little bit. We didn't deviate from that initial strategy, but there was that emergency backup power component to it as well.
Some urgency there.
Absolutely. And then that was the original concept. The additional applications are not a departure from what GasLoop does or what it is, but additional applications, meaning for storage of hydrogen, renewable natural gas, as we see clean energy objectives and those kind of things making their way into the marketplace. So we were able to kind of move with that, some push and some pull, especially with hydrogen and what's going on in Oklahoma and in our region, especially with recently the Inflation Reduction Act, what that's done for the hydrogen economy, and our state's pursuit in a 3-state partnership with Arkansas and Louisiana to create a hydrogen hub. And that's a Department of Energy, very large funding opportunity and very large clean energy initiative for our region.
So for people who maybe aren't oil and gas experts, what are the advantages to what you're doing, and what's the ultimately the bottom line is, what's the financial benefit to provide it to incorporating your solutions into an existing or a new construction?
Right. From an operations standpoint, what you would typically see if we hadn't developed this are the large above ground tanks, large spheres. Okay. And if you see one of these on television, it's on fire. So
you don't want to see that.
Right. Not that that's common or an operational flaw. Right. They wouldn't be as prevalent if that were the case. But at the same time, anything that's above ground that's of that size or capacity, the types of capacities that we're talking utility scale. Okay. Basically, there are some smaller storage applications as well. But that's what you would typically see, or if you've heard of geological storage options, salt caverns, things like that, depleted reservoir.
Right.
These are the other storage alternatives that existed prior to us developing this. So we feel that it being in pipe and all of the advantages of pipe and what you use that for in the energy space, with it being underground, that gives you, we believe, environmental and safety advantage. As far as financial advantage, the cost to construct or install our system is very similar to tanks, like something that you would build. So it's not necessarily a cost saving there. However, with the peak shaving and operational component of it, with peak shaving and arbitrage opportunity, this is a long-term asset. You can cycle gas in at a lower commodity price, store it, deploy it when demand is high and when prices increase. So the operator gets some control over their supply and demand curve, which they did not have prior. So there's some cost recovery over the length of the life of the asset.
I would assume some control issues too, as well, like the potential to control a pipe system as opposed to a large single cell unit that if there's a problem and the whole thing has to be shut down.
Right, absolutely, and scalability as well. And I'll come back to that, but being able to store and have that commodity pricing control mechanism is big. In terms of scalability, when you talk about that term can mean so many different things. When we say scalability, we don't mean ramp up the business, increase growth. What does your revenue model look like? When we say, we're talking about the operation of the asset itself. So a customer of ours who's storing, let's say, natural gas on site, they have a growth model associated with, and they're doing a forecast in terms of what their storage capacity needs are. And you don't do that based on what you think it's going to be a month from now or even a year. There's a forecast associated with that for them. And and a better example actually is for hydrogen, because production of hydrogen is such I wouldn't say a new thing, but how it's being deployed and what its end uses are relatively new. And so hydrogen production has increased quite a bit. And so as they're forecasting their capacity storage need, if it's at 5 million cubic feet per day today, they don't have to guess if it's going to be 50.
Right.
And then install a 50 million cubic feet storage system now.
That they don't need yet.
Yeah, as long as the available land footprint allows, you can expand this system and add additional parallel runs of the pipe and actually kind of move with their growth objectives as it happens. I wouldn't say real time, because you have some lead time on the construction of it. But
you have the options.
Yeah, as close to that as you can actually achieve operationally.
Can you also utilize the land that the pipes are under, as opposed to having a big storage unit that takes up all that space?
Right. There is light duty surface use. The most common questions we get around it are for access roads for vehicles in and out, normal transportation, people operating the facilities. And again, with new clean energy initiatives and focus on renewable deployment, a solar array over the top is actually very common. And we would actually, we're not going into the solar business, but it's complementary to what
that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, and what we would be interested in, our company specifically, that would be more of a customer-driven thing. If they want to add solar to their resource mix, we would be able to accommodate that or facilitate that, we like to say. But for us, we would be a user of the space, and maybe our system itself is powered off that in kind of a net zero type of a scenario.
Could be stay off the grid, or maybe even be remote, right? Where it didn't even have to be ever connected to it.
Yeah, or even net negative and selling back to the grid, potentially.
So all kinds of opportunities to do things just in smarter, better, more advanced ways, and achieve better just with better ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and conceptually, it's very simple. That's one of the things we love about it. It's not confusing that there are parallel rows of pipe underground that are adjoined, and conceptually what it is. And our patent is a utility patent. It's not a design patent. So it's pipe, it's valving, it's control logic, a first of its kind utilization of proven and existing technologies. So there's nothing, as far as innovation, there's not anything particularly scary. Or unproven, or we're unsure if it might work.
Or things that you have to custom manufacture, or things of that nature, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so it makes it even
we do
easier.
not foresee supply chain issues and construction problems or timelines or in-service dates as a result of any of those things.
So you've mentioned hydrogen a couple of times.
Right.
And as you mentioned, it's the production of hydrogen is a changing element and an emerging element. Mm-hmm. And then the state of Oklahoma has done some innovative things to harness that, and the Department of Energy, et cetera. So let's talk about the HALO project, right? Is that what it's called?
Correct.
With what the state of Oklahoma is involved in,
yeah.
And the potential that's going to bring to the state and to the region for harnessing this energy, for production, for distribution, for all the things that come along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's three primary components of it, just from a strategy standpoint and how it's approached. There's production, infrastructure, and then end use. And that's kind of the overarching look at it for the companies that are involved. There are over 70 companies locally and within Oklahoma and in the surrounding states. HALO is a fortunate acronym for Hydrogen, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma.
There you go.
Some folks may have heard of the Oklahoma Hydrogen Task Force prior to the announcement of HALO, and this was a long part of the trajectory leading up to what is now a Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Energy federal funding opportunity for hydrogen hubs. So that led into HALO, a lot of smart folks kind of putting together the pieces around that. And the funding opportunity announcement for HALO was just a few weeks ago. We were approached prior to that. Honestly, didn't know exactly what kind of part we would play in it, but there was a lot of interest around our solution for on-site and co-locational storage of hydrogen, exactly what we do with GasLoop. So we were involved in the kickoff meeting. Ken Wagner was a part of that. The new Energy Secretary, Ken McQueen, secretaries representing Arkansas, Louisiana, some government folks, lots of industry people. We're seeing a lot of that in a lot of things now, kind of this combination of all of those things coming together. But we're geographically, collectively between the 3-state partnership, geographically advantaged. Also, Louisiana is the largest producing state for hydrogen in the United States. Tulsa ports and having the most inland waterway. Lots of advantages in the industry all along there. It's kind of this storm of components, kind of a perfect storm of elements coming together to really be advantaged to pursue that. But the overall opportunity that was announced from the DOE, Department of Energy, was an $8 billion fund going to as many as, I believe, 6 or 8 different hubs. And these hubs, just to clarify, is not a centralized location. It's more of think of it more as a value chain.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, for the region.
A cooperative, a collaborative.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'd be more of a regional effort that takes on some different forms for different purposes, and there are some around the country as well pursuing the same thing. Yeah.
So let's talk just a little bit about the company Firefly.
Yeah.
How long has it been in existence, and kind of what stage are you at right now in developing the company and this solution and the things that you're looking to do in the future?
Yeah, we started back in late 2017, I believe. Not really with this solution in mind. It came to us later. We were doing more of a traditional midstream business model. Doing some consulting and kind of had a number of things going on in the early stages.
Like a lot of startups do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, start here and then kind of
try to find the opportunity and then pursue it.
Yeah, and this kind of came our way, and we worked on it for a little while in parallel with those other items. And then basically COVID comes around, and that really ended up being it did more good for us than harm, kind of, I don't know, in an odd way. It allowed us to kind of slow down, kind of focus on the patent, develop that idea, and just not a lot was going on. Of course, we don't want those kind of delays and things like that. It's a little disruptive.
But we had to keep working through it, right?
Yeah. I mean, you had to survive that. Right. So surviving it was good, but how we came out on the other end of it was really kind of fortunate for us, and we could have never scripted that or set out to do things that way. But it was just really interesting how that came together. Our patent was published, fully approved and published in May of last year. We spent the second half of 21 kind of, I call it market analysis. We're in the first year of a new administration at that point.
Sure.
Different energy
things
policies.
Change. Yeah.
Things kind of shift. And there was a big shift in the energy space for utilities and for everyone, basically. So we were kind of seeing where we would land within that, and had to figure that out a little bit. And then we kind of saw how that was taking shape, how we fit within that, and we went into full commercialization around the beginning of the year, fully, I would say around the beginning of Q2, got some commercial traction. We're pre-Series A in terms of funding trajectory and things like that. But this Halo and Hydrogen Hub initiative kind of changed our strategy around that too. That's a funding opportunity, and how we fit within that is not something we were considering a year or more ago.
Right.
And so we're moving with that as well and making that adjustment. It's not that we've ceased our funding efforts by any means, and we're going to wait and see how this goes. But
you can't do that, right? You got to keep working
of
every
course.
angle, right?
Yeah, but taking that into account, and it establishes a little bit of a timeline for us. It's kind of some, if we make it here, then, and we're just kind of taking that into account with how we forecast our funding efforts and what we're looking to do there.
And having your product patented, holding a patent, definitely changes the evaluation process as to the investability and everything else that comes along. If you decide to do Series A or any other form of funding, it changes that model a little bit too in your favor. Because you've done the hard work.
Right, and how we commercialize this too.
And you protect it and improve it. So you're in a very unique position, but a good position to follow whatever opportunity comes along. And it seems like a lot of opportunities have come along your way in your short 5-ish years of being in existence.
Right.
Excellent. That's what being a startup, what's being entrepreneurial is all about, right? Following the opportunities and not being so set on that idea, but looking for the way it can work, right?
Right.
So then let me follow you with that with the question we ask all of our guests on the podcast is, what advice do you have for Oklahoma entrepreneurs or business owners about working in this state, starting a business, et cetera, anything that you feel is really essential for people to understand about doing business in Oklahoma?
Yeah. To hit a couple of those things specifically, first and foremost, considering starting a business and not knowing how to do that or what that entails, I think, getting started and not quitting and kind of grinding through that, but also understanding not just a don't give up, that's one way to say it, but we have a lot of resources around us. Understand what the resources are. With OVF is one that will point you in a lot of directions. That is my experience. But also understanding that overnight success only looks like overnight.
There's no such thing.
Right. It only it's overnight success, as in yesterday you were not and today you are, but it took X number of years. And I've kind of learned that 5 years is a long time, but it's also not.
Right.
Yeah. I hear other entrepreneur stories and what that looks like and timing and things that are beyond anybody's control. Good, bad, or indifferent. You are not unlucky. You are not, that's different for everyone.
Right.
But there is a path. There are things you have to do. And as long as you keep stepping through that and figure those out and work with some tenacity and some diligence, then you will figure it out.
Very good advice.
Yeah.
I like that a whole lot. So thank you so much, Brent Smith, Firefly Energy. Thanks for having a conversation with us today. Thank you for presenting to OVF recently. We appreciated that conversation. You only had 5 minutes in the room today. We got to spend considerably more time having a conversation about your product, about the business. If you are interested in learning more about Firefly Energy and the product that they have, where can they find you guys? What's your website?
Website is www.fireflyenergyservices.com.
There you go. And if you are an OVF member, you automatically have access to their contact information because Brent was one of our presenters at a recent luncheon. So if you're a member, go into the member resources on the website. You can find their contact information and learn more about them. So I'm sure the folks in oil and gas and on the funding side, the VC world will be really excited to see how all of this works out and how they might potentially do some things with Brent and Firefly Energy. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks, Kyle.